Hi, I'm Nicole, and the article I chose to reflect on was Tatum's development of white identity. So the article starts off by explaining that while the task for people of color is to resist negative societal messages and develop an empowered sense of self in the face of racist society, the task for whites is to develop a positive white identity based on reality, not on assumed superiority. In order for this to happen, each person must become aware of his or her whiteness, accept it as a personally and socially significant, and learn to feel good about it. There are two major developmental tasks in this process for white individuals: the abandonment of individual racism and the recognition of and opposition to the institutional and cultural racism. These two tasks can be broken up into 6 different stages, which are contact, disintegration, reintegration, pseudo-independent, immersion, and autonomy, which I will discuss throughout the course of this video. To start off, I'm going to briefly mention the first stage, which is contact. Contact is broadly defined as whites' lack of attention to the significance of their racial identity and often perceive themselves as colorblind or free of prejudice, which in most cases is completely untrue. The second stage, which is disintegration, is defined by the growing awareness of racism and white privilege as a result of personal encounters which race is made visible. For some whites, this can occur when they develop a relationship or friendship with a person of color or experience a racist incident in some way. In this stage, the white individual will start to see how racism operates and begin to experience emotions of guilt, shame, or anger as they see how everyone's lives have been affected by racism in our society. This new awareness can sometimes cause individuals to withdraw from the information or can transform into fear and anger, which is directed toward people of color. This brings me to the next stage of reintegration, because it can sometimes be easier to blame the problem of racism on people of color. This stage can be brief or extended depending on one's ability to acknowledge the true system of racism and how they can use their influence to interrupt the cycle. The next stage is pseudo-independent, which is basically defined as by Tatum as the commitment to unlearn one's racism. In this stage, the individual understands the system of racism but isn't sure what to do about it. They often feel guilty about their whiteness and desire to escape it by associating themselves with people of color. However, to overcome this stage, white individuals must confront the reality of his or her own whiteness without shame. So, hanging out with people of color isn't really going to help them confront this reality. In the immersion stage, white individuals begin to recognize the need to see whiteness in a more positive light. This can be strengthened by searching for allies and other types of support groups to renew the hope. In this stage, feelings of guilt or shame start to fade as whiteness is redefined. The last stage discussed in the article is autonomy, which occurs when a person is able to incorporate a newly defined view of whiteness as a part of a personal identity. Although racial identity development never really ends, these stages allow white individuals to be more open to new information and new ways of thinking about racial and cultural variables and use them to change the system of racism. Overall, I think it can sometimes be uncomfortable and frightening for whites to examine racial identity, but those who persist in the struggle are rewarded with an increasingly multiracial and multicultural existence. Not only is it important for white individuals to accept this responsibility, it is also greatly important for teachers to teach students in ways that put them on the right track to develop a racial identity.